Let's talk about something that, on the surface, just doesn't make any sense. How could a handful of Spanish soldiers, literally just a few hundred guys, take down the massive Aztec and Inca empires? We're talking about civilizations with millions of people. I mean, really think about that. How does that even happen? It's a question that historians have wrestled with forever, and the answer, well, it's not just one thing. It's this perfect storm of cunning strategy, mind-blowing technology, and, yeah, a terrifying hidden weapon. So to really get it, we first have to understand the two worlds that were on a collision course.
Okay, let's set the stage. We're talking about the early 1500s, and you've got two worlds that are about to crash into each other. And believe me, they could not have been more different.
I mean, just look at this comparison. It is night and day. On one side, you have 16th century Spain. This is the superpower of Europe at the time, and they are absolutely obsessed with finding gold and building an empire. And on the other side, you've got the Americas, home to these incredible, sophisticated Aztec and Inca empires, sitting on just unimaginable wealth. But, and this is a huge but, it's a world that had never ever seen things like guns, or steel swords, or even horses. So who were the guys leading this charge? Well, they were called conquistadors, and the name says it all. It literally means conquerors in Spanish. These were these super ambitious soldiers, explorers, guys who were driven by this incredible mix of motives that was powerful enough to make them cross an entire ocean into the complete unknown. And what was that motivation? Well, it boils down to three things. The three Gs: gold, glory, and God. They wanted to get rich, they wanted to become legends, and they honestly believed they were on a divine mission to spread their faith. That combination, it created this relentless, unstoppable drive. Okay, so they had the drive, for sure, but motivation alone doesn't conquer an empire. So how did they actually pull it off against such insane odds? Well, it wasn't just luck. They had a plan, a kind of conquistador's playbook, and it was devastatingly effective. And this playbook, it basically had four main plays. First up, find the cracks in the empire and exploit them. Turn people against their own rulers. Second, leverage your insane technological advantage. I mean, stuff that must have looked like magic. Third, unleash a silent killer that no one saw coming. And the final move, the checkmate, take out the leader.
This first play is absolutely brilliant. You have to remember, these empires, the Aztec, the Inca, they weren't one big happy family. Not at all. They were built by conquering other groups who were then forced to pay tribute and really resented their rulers. The Spanish saw this immediately, and they just masterfully exploited that anger, making alliances with these local groups. So all of a sudden, it's not a few hundred Spaniards against an empire. It's a few hundred Spaniards leading armies of thousands of local warriors who are eager for revenge. And then there's the tech advantage. It's hard for us to even wrap our heads around how huge this gap was. Just try to imagine it. You've never seen a horse in your life, and suddenly there's this armored man on a giant beast charging at you. He's carrying a steel sword, something you've never seen, and he's firing a weapon that literally makes thunder and smoke. The sheer shock and terror, that psychological impact was maybe even more powerful than the weapons themselves. But here's the thing. The deadliest weapon the Spanish had, you couldn't even see it. It wasn't a sword or a gun. It was disease, smallpox. See, the people in the Americas had been isolated for thousands of years, so they had absolutely no immunity to European diseases. And smallpox just tore through their populations. It killed millions, creating total chaos and weakening the empires from the inside out, sometimes before the Spanish even arrived in a city.
And that brings us to the final play. Decapitate the leadership. Cut the head off the snake. Both the Aztec and Inca empires were built like a pyramid, with the emperor right at the top. All power, all commands flowed from him. That's a huge strength when things are going well, but it's also a massive weakness. The Spanish figured this out. By capturing just one person, the emperor, they could paralyze the entire system. It was like pulling the plug. No one knew what to do. The whole command structure just collapsed into chaos.
So that's the four-step playbook. Pretty effective, right? Now, let's look at how this all played out in the real world, first with the Aztecs and then with the Incas. And what is just mind-blowing is how fast it all happened. Seriously, look at this timeline. Hernán Cortés shows up in Mexico in 1519. 2 years later, 2 years, the entire Aztec capital, this massive city, has fallen. Then, just about 10 years after that, Francisco Pizarro does the same thing to the Incas. He captures their emperor, and the capital falls the very next year. This wasn't a long, drawn-out war. It was a blitz, a lightning-fast takedown. Let's take the Aztecs. Hernan Cortez followed the playbook to a T. He found all those local groups that absolutely hated the Emperor Moctezuma, and he turned them into his allies. Right at the same time, a huge smallpox epidemic was ripping through the capital, Tenochtitlan. Add in the Spanish weapons, and it was just the perfect, tragic storm that brought the empire down. Now, over in the Inca Empire, Francisco Pizarro had an even bigger advantage. He arrived right after the empire had torn itself apart in a brutal civil war between two brothers. So it was already incredibly weak and divided. Pizarro just walked into that situation, ambushed the winning emperor Atahualpa, and captured him. The whole empire, already fractured, just crumbled.
So the empires fell. But the story doesn't end there. Not even close. The fall of the Aztecs and Incas wasn't just some local conflict. It had massive, permanent consequences that literally changed the entire world.
I mean, we're talking about world-altering changes. Things we still feel today. The food on your plate, that's partly thanks to the Columbian Exchange that started then. But it came at a price that is just horrifying to think about. Disease and brutal, brutal treatment led to one of the worst population collapses in human history. Millions of indigenous people died. Whole cultures were basically erased. Their temples were torn down, and the Spanish built new cities, like Mexico City, right on top of the ruins.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the takeaway? The fall of these empires, it wasn't just about who had the better army. It was this complex, tragic collision of disease, technology, and some incredibly shrewd political maneuvering. And it really leaves you with this chilling question, doesn't it? What happens when one world's unstoppable ambition, driven by gold and glory, meets a world that was completely, utterly unprepared for what was coming?